I think the word everyone associates with evolutions in Clash Royale is broken and strong. And it seems that every time a new evolution comes out, people start saying that Supercell outdid themselves this time, or that the new evolution has to be the most broken to date, when in reality, it's just everyone overreacting because a couple of cherry-picked interactions are shown for demonstration purposes. But it got me thinking, what truly is the strongest evolution of all time? That's why in this video, I've looked through the entire existence of evolutions within Clash Royale, in order to determine what is the strongest evolution in Clash Royale history. The February 2025 Evo Lumberjack. The Lumberjack evolution is a unique concept on paper. It's a normal Lumberjack until it's dead, where it spawns a ghost that comes back to fight. I expected the ghost to deal less damage than the Lumberjack, or move slower, or only stay alive for like 2 or 3 seconds. But the February and March 2025 Evo Lumberjack was way too strong, to the point that it made his unique concept just annoying. The Evo Lumberjack ghost on release was identical to an alive Lumberjack, which basically meant that you got 2 Lumberjacks for the price of 1 with his evolution. Combine this with the fact that the ghost was invincible and also invisible, and this concept turns absolutely game-breaking. The normal Lumberjack is not a great card because he's easy to counter, but when it connects, it is extremely punishing. By making the Lumberjack come back to life and impossible to kill, the Evo Lumberjack basically overcame what made the Lumberjack balanced. And when it was released, the Lumberjack Ghost's life could be extended by dropping a rage spell, which means that you could theoretically 3-crown with this card if you played correctly. But I think this rage ability was more of a gimmick than an actual useful feature. And funnily enough, the first nerf Clash Royale gave the card was to make it so that rage could not extend the life of the Evo Lumberjack ghost. And while you might think that this would have killed the card, it basically did nothing, because a very small proportion of players would even make use of the gimmick. The ghost was overpowered because it would destroy the counter push of an opponent if the Lumberjack user overcommitted, and since it was invincible, the opponent really couldn't do anything.
Like I literally don't know how to defend this.
Why not? It's a lumber boy.
Yeah, but he's buffed. He's gonna have a critical attack. There we go.
Is that thing buffed?
I don't know. Rage it up though. This is so stupid, man. I can't do anything for this. This is so stupid. I can't stop this Lumberjack,
and
man.
And the little prince is faster from the Rune Giant buff? Rune Giant Lumberjack? Does it make sense, Supercell?
In the 6 seconds that the Lumberjack ghost stayed in the rage, it could deal a whopping 2,800 damage, which is absolutely insane. And to make things worse, the Lumberjack Evo was a 1-cycle evolution, so the fact that you could get this counter push destroyer basically every 30 seconds made him an almost perfect evolution for the opponent's chances at building a major push. The nature of the Lumberjack's playstyle is fast and aggressive, so it meant that your opponent was forced to defend it, otherwise it provides way too much value. So if the ghost can kill the defensive cards before they cross the bridge, then it means that the opponent can't really do much, so it's a bit of a lose-lose. In his first month of the game, he recorded a whopping 30% usage rate, making him the most used evolution in the game. His ability was annoying and he was easy to cycle to, easily one of the strongest evolutions in the game's history. The April 2024 Evolved Zap. Originally, I wasn't gonna include the Evolved Zap, and I was just gonna put it as an honorable mention, but the April 2024 Evo Zap was so strong I just had to include it. The April 2024 Evo Zap was like a normal zap, except it repeated 3 times and its radius became increasingly larger. That's literally it. I think it's one of the only like normal evolution concepts on this list, but like the other Evos on this list, the Evo Zap was way too strong stats-wise. The total damage it dealt was more than arrows, which is pretty insane considering that arrows was a staple in most decks already. This damage lead above the arrows is actually what made the Evo Zap the preferred spell in a lot of decks, because this was the reason the Evo Zap could kill the Evo Firecracker and the Evo Archers compared to arrows, since arrows wasn't able to kill these Evos. And since these were already the same number of cycles, most of the time you would have the Evo Zap, your opponent would have their Evo Firecracker or their Evo Archers. And in the Dagger Duchess meta, tanks were really common, which meant that buildings like Inferno Tower were really common as well. And considering that you got 3 zaps for the price of 1, the Evo Zap was literally a perfect anti-meta spell, since you could get more than an arrow's worth of damage on the tower and stun an Inferno Tower 3 times to let something like a giant kill the defensive building, all for 2 elixir. During April 2024, the Evo Zap recorded recorded a 50% usage rate in grand challenges, making it the most used spell in the game. I literally don't have anything else to say about the Evo Zap. It didn't have a unique game-breaking ability. It really was just insane stats for the cost, making it one of the strongest evolutions in the game's history. The February/March 2024 Evolved Skeletons. I think everyone would have expected this, but the February/March 2024 Evolved Skeletons were so broken that now that I look back at it, it makes me wonder why they didn't get nerfed so fast. The main thing that made them so broken was the fact that they would instantly start chaining when they hit a troop. The current day Evolved Skeletons actually have a delay between hitting a troop and spawning more skeletons, which creates some very unique interactions, such as it being unable to kill normal skeletons, since there's a delay to multiply. But because of this, they're pretty trash since they basically never chain unless the troop they attack has a slow attack speed, and most of the time, the opponent has a spell, so they aren't really worth it. However, the reliability of the February 2024 Evo Skellies in being able to chain consistently made them way too broken, since for one elixir, you could destroy entire pushes if you played them correctly, and they were amazing spell bait. On top of that, they were also very threatening if they got close to the tower, since it was able to 3-crown on its own if it connected to the tower. And to make things worse, once they connected to your tower, it was very difficult to kill them without a large radius spell like arrows or log, since things like Zap could sometimes miss a skeleton or two, which basically meant that they would instantly chain back to their max capability. In grand challenges, the Evo Skellies recorded a 31% usage rate, making them one of the most used evolutions in the game at the time. Evo Skellies basically made it mandatory to carry small spells in most decks, since the amount of value they could provide if an opponent didn't have a spell could literally cost them the game, and if you were facing them so often, it would be a mistake not to include a spell in your deck. I think it was obnoxious that a 1 elixir cycle card could be so powerful, since it made defenses really cheap, and also made it so that overcommitment wasn't as punishing, since they were like a get out of jail for free card for the defender. Who wouldn't have thought that a cheap, quick to cycle, easy to play, extremely powerful and extremely threatening evolution wouldn't be one of the strongest evolutions in the game's history? The August 2023 Evolved Knight. The Evolved Knight is one of the most unique ideas that Clash Royale has had for a card, and to be honest, in his current state, he's still a little bit unbalanced, but not outrageous. But the August 2023 Evolved Knight was unbelievably strong. In case you didn't know, the Evo Knight's ability is that he will hold his shield while he moves, or if he stands still without attacking, meaning that the damage dealt on him will be reduced by a certain factor. In the case of the August 2023 Evo Knight, it was 80%, but as soon as he starts attacking, he loses his damage reduction. If we compare the August 2023 Evo Knight to the current day Evo Knight, we see that he had 30% more health and 0.3 seconds faster hit speed while doing 10% more damage per hit, resulting in his damage per second being 45% more. He also had an 80% damage reduction compared to the 60% damage reduction the current one has, all while being the same 3 elixir and the same number of cycles. And considering that the current day Evo Knight is strong, you can kind of tell how much of a menace the August 2023 one would be with stats like these. I think the most broken part of the card had to be his outrageous damage per second, combined with his fast hit speed. Even if the Knight's entire evolution concept was just a stat buff, he would be overpowered, since the Knight was already a well-rounded defensive and offensive card. Almost any play against this new buffed Knight was a negative elixir trade, and then you get to the damage reduction. The Monk ability has an 80% damage reduction, and that's a temporary ability. I have no clue how Clash Royale thought that a card that would be cheaper than the Monk can permanently have the ability that a champion has without it costing extra elixir, and piling it on top of a card that has better stats than the Monk. If the Knight kept his shield on, he effectively had 11,500 health, which is more than double the health of a Golem. This damage reduction made the Evo Knight a beast at just tanking forever, to the point that people used the Evo Knight to tank a push rather than a giant or a Golem. At his peak, the Evo Knight recorded a 66% usage rate in top ladder, making him the most used card in the game. The good thing about the Knight is that it fit into a variety of decks, and the Evo Knight made it even more versatile, which is why it was used so much. The fact that you would see Evo Knight in bait and beatdown decks shows how versatile the card was, considering that these archetypes have such different playstyles. The August 2023 Evolved Knight has to be one of the strongest evolutions in Clash Royale history, and I doubt that there would be any contention to this. The October/November 2024 Evolved PEKKA. Whenever a card has a healing ability in Clash Royale, it's not really going to be balanced. It's either going to be extremely powerful or horrible. And unfortunately, the October/November 2024 Evolved PEKKA was absolutely busted. Every troop the PEKKA killed would give her a healing of 471 hit points, though this was nerfed by 20% to 376 during October. The issue with this is that it became way too inconsistent. The fact that she could hit a skeleton and get the same healing as killing a golem was so unbalanced, since a golem takes a lot longer to kill than a single skeleton. The weakness of the PEKKA was swarm cards already, so this ability almost eliminated the PEKKA's weakness. But this wasn't even the most broken aspect of the Evolved PEKKA. Shortly before the Evo PEKKA was released, the normal PEKKA got a range buff from 1.2 tiles to 1.6 tiles. This range made the Evo PEKKA deadly. The main interaction changes that this brought was that she could hit troops across the bridge, and she could get absolutely crazy hits on moving targets such as a Hog Rider, or if she got tornadoed, she could sometimes end up hitting something that she shouldn't have. And there was some interactions with the Evolved PEKKA that just kept making things worse. A low health Evo PEKKA near the tower couldn't be countered with cheap cards like skeletons, because the heal she got from skeletons would actually put her at more HP, meaning that it would actually do more damage to the tower. She paired well with Rage and Freeze, since Rage could not only clear out swarms, but also make the PEKKA attack faster and therefore heal faster, and Freeze could turn an almost dead PEKKA into a nightmare, since it would not only heal back up to normal health, but also destroy the opponent's troops. The PEKKA went from a card that needed some skill to play to a brain dead no skill card. All you needed to do was place it down and support it with all sorts of spells and win conditions. In the Evo PEKKA's first month in Grand Challenges, it recorded a 30% usage rate. I don't think many people understand how insane that is for an expensive card like the PEKKA. Expensive cards in Clash Royale typically don't see high usage rates, since they are riskier to play and they also slow down the cycle of a deck. Seeing an Evolved PEKKA in every third game was already bad enough, but the fact that you would see Evo PEKKA in Lumberloon and even Goblin Giant decks was the nail in the coffin. I know I've definitely had my fair share of rage quits seeing an Evo PEKKA disintegrate my tower in one push, so I'll just leave it there. Easily one of the top 5 strongest Evos ever. The July 2023 Evolved Firecracker. I can guarantee that basically everyone that has played Clash Royale in the past 2 years has been annoyed by an Evolved Firecracker, and the July 2023 Evolved Firecracker doesn't make things better. If you think that the current day Evolved Firecracker is broken, just know that it doesn't even come close to the original Evo Firecracker. The difference between the normal and the Evo Firecracker is that her fireworks shrapnel deals a poison type of damage that slowly chips down troops within the radius. This doesn't seem too bad when you first think about it, but the thing is, back when this card first came out, these shrapnel pulses did way too much damage. Just to give you an idea, even if the Evo Firecracker got a single hit on your tower as a result of hitting a different troop, the shrapnel damage at level 11 would have been over 300. And keep in mind, if she hit again, it would have been over 600 damage within a matter of seconds. But it gets worse. This version of the Firecracker had a fast first hit speed, which meant that if she sighted a troop, she would attack it pretty quickly. This made planting her at the bridge deadly, since she could literally deal thousands of damage if the opponent made one misplay, and she was completely unpredictable. But again, it gets worse. The July 2023 Evo Firecracker had a 33% recoil increase over the normal Firecracker. The normal Firecracker is already so annoying because of that recoil, and it can avoid spells and also the attacks of melee troops. But this 33% recoil increase made her untouchable without a spell. She would push herself so far back that it meant that troops that would normally be able to hit the Firecracker just couldn't, allowing the Firecracker to destroy the opponent's troops. And I know I've already said this like 50 times, but it still gets worse. This version of the Evo Firecracker was able to survive arrows, which previously was the best counter to the normal Firecracker, and I think this aspect of the card was probably the most broken. On her normal card, her recoil was quite large, which is why a large radius spell was usually what you needed to reliably kill her, which was the arrows. However, the Evo Firecracker required a minimum of a fireball to take her out, otherwise she would survive with a sliver of health, so it was already a negative elixir trade to kill her. But the fact that she could potentially survive the fireball because of the recoil is what made it so frustrating to play against her. I think what contributed to why the Evo Firecracker was so broken was the fact that when Evos were first released, everyone got a chance to choose what Evo they wanted to obtain for free, and a lot of people chose the Firecracker. At some point, people realized that if they spam her at the bridge and protect her, she would deal thousands of damage on the tower with her shrapnel alone. This made her quite a low skill card, which is also what contributes to the frustration of losing a game to the evolved Firecracker. And defensively, the Evo Firecracker was also insanely good, since the shrapnel had such a long range, meaning that a big push could be easily shut down. In July of 2023, she had a 25% usage rate in ladder, so you would see her every 4 matches.
Guys, this is absolutely insane. I don't know if I have ever seen a card before be this broken inside of the game before the evolved Firecracker. Sure, maybe there has been it, but at least it would get emergency nerf. The Firecracker, or any of the evolutions for that matter, they've been out in the game now for almost a month and they haven't been emergency nerfed. There are currently 84 people inside of the top 200 right now using the evolved Firecracker. So if that doesn't show how broken it is, I don't know what does. I mean, there are literally people quitting the game because of how broken this card is.
So to summarize, the July 2023 evolved Firecracker dealt a lot of damage. Her shrapnel dealt poison levels of damage. They were able to stack. She had an annoying recoil that made her almost impossible to kill without any spells. She could survive arrows, and the base Firecracker card was already a good card. I don't see how anyone would disagree that this version of the Firecracker was one of the strongest evolutions this game has ever had, and I hope that the Evo Firecracker stays a weak card forever. The July 2024 evolved Goblin Drill. When the evolved Goblin Drill was first announced, I remember thinking that it either had to be a joke or a mistake from Supercell, because it was literally uncounterable without either overspending or at least taking one hit. The Evo Goblin Drill has 3 phases, where each phase gets activated after losing a third of its health. Every time it changed to a different phase, it would go underground and return in a different position around the tower. As a concept, it already sounded so broken, so actually seeing it in game was crazy. To start, the drill did damage every time it resurfaced, meaning at a minimum, you would get 75 tower damage at level 11. And the drill also did knockback every time it resurfaced, meaning that small cards would stand no chance against it every time it popped back up, since they got knocked back and the goblins could connect onto the tower. On top of that, the drill would also spawn 2 goblins when it went underground, and since it did knockback, these goblins would almost always connect to the tower. Keep in mind, this would repeat 3 times as the drill circled around the tower. Meanwhile, the drill user could use something like a bomber or a goblin demolisher to get damage on your tower as your troops stumbled around the tower to try kill the Goblin Drill. So for 4 elixir, you were getting a card that could almost always guarantee damage on the tower and was also amazing on defense. Drill plus poison was now even more annoying to deal with, since the Evo Drill was kind of manageable with cheap cards if you played them correctly. So poison would wipe them out and deal a lot of damage on the tower. It made it almost mandatory to spend on a larger troop to deal with the Evo Drill to prevent getting destroyed by Drill plus poison. The fact that even normal counters to Drill, like Valkyrie and Dark Prince, struggled with the Drill was bad, since even with both of these troops down on the map, the Drill would sometimes still deal at least 300 damage, which is kind of insane and very concerning if you played Clash Royale competitively. This evolution was sort of the turning point for many players to really start to think whether or not playing competitively was worth it, if a player could just spam Evo Drills and prey on its undefendability using a low skill strategy.
I physically can't counter this right now. I'm panicking. That's evolution drill. That's ridiculous.
I don't have usage rate stats on the Evo Drill at its peak in July 2024, but if this tier list ranking is anything to go by, with Boss saying that a lot of people in top ladder are using it.
And lastly, the evolved Goblin Drill. It might be too soon to say, but I do believe it might be the strongest evolution in the game at the moment. Bare minimum, it is top 3. It just came out. There's so many people having success with it at the top of ladder, even though you had to spend money for it.
I would predict it to have at least a 20% usage rate, probably closer to 30%. The pre-release Evo Bomber. I know that saying pre-release isn't fair on a card, since a lot of people often overreact about an Evo before it's released, since it hasn't been given time to settle within the meta. But given what we know about the release Bomber versus the pre-release Bomber, I can say with confidence that the pre-release Evo Bomber was an absolute nightmare. The Evo Bomber turns a normal bomber into a magic archer by giving it a very long range, meaning that it can hit the tower from the bridge if it's aligned with a troop. The difference between the pre-release and the official release February 2024 Evo Bomber was that the pre-release one survived arrows, but before it got officially released, Clash Royale nerfed its health so it wouldn't survive arrows. Just to give a few reasons why this Evo was absolutely busted, it was a one cycle Evo. It had an 11 tile range, meaning that it could even hit the opposite tower from the other side of the map if it was aligned properly. It dealt splash damage on every hit. It could double bounce on the tower, dealing double the damage. I think the Evo Bomber was way more punishing than the Firecracker Evo, since it was so unpredictable, and you could get it way more faster. I remember watching OJ's showcase video at the time and just laughing, since this Evo didn't make any sense.
Arrow still kill it? Or no?
It doesn't.
Oh, it doesn't.
It's one cycle and it doesn't kill it. Bro, what are they thinking?
And it seemed to get damage on the tower no matter where you played it or what it hit. As I mentioned in my video of why 2 elixir cards are so good back when this card came out, having a one cycle Evo that is a really cheap elixir cost is so game breaking, since it's literally rewarding to cycle the Bomber Evo, since the normal Bomber usually gets at least 2 elixir of value, and the Evo Bomber can get so much value basically against any card in the game except flying troops. It can get tower damage against a tank walking in a lane. It can kill swarm cards. It can kill supporting cards in a push behind a tank because of its bounce range. At the Evo Bomber's peak, it recorded over a 50% usage rate. And keep in mind, this is after a set of nerfs to its bounce distance. This version of the Evo Bomber was the one that did die to arrows. So it makes you wonder, what would its usage rate have been if it stayed in its pre-release state where it survived arrows? All in all, the pre-release Evo Bomber was an absolute nightmare. It was extremely punishing, always a negative elixir trade, extremely easy to cycle, super easy to fit in any deck, and very cheap to play. You would think that this would be the part where I end the video, but I think there is one Evo that was so strong that I genuinely considered not playing the game when it was first announced. Before I talk about the strongest evolution, which I'm sure everyone already knows what it is, there are some evolutions that I think are strong but didn't quite make this list that I think are still worth mentioning. I'll also mention these so I don't get comments about how I missed certain strong evolutions, so here are some honorable mentions. The Evolved Dark Goblin. The April 2024 Evolved Tesla. The October 2023 Evolved Royal Recruits. The February 2024 Evolved Wallbreakers. The May 2025 Evolved Witch. The December 2024 Evolved Ice Spirit. The pre-release Electro Dragon. The pre-release Evo Electro Dragon was so broken I don't even think words can describe it. And keep in mind here, I'm saying pre-release. You would think that after all the Evos released before the Evo E-Drag, that Clash Royale would figure out at some point that making the game more balanced actually makes it fun. But Clash Royale defied everything about game balance to the point that it makes you wonder, do they really test Evos before they release them?
I'm just gonna try this out for fun. I wanna see how this does. Evo E-Drag versus PEKKA, Monk, Prince, Balloon. Bro, what? Bro, there's actually no way. And Clash Royale says they test their cards? What?
I'm pretty sure that Clash Royale did nerf the Evo Electro Dragon before it got released. The Evo Electro Dragon had an infinite chain. Now this wouldn't be an issue for most cards, but the issue with the Electro Dragon specifically having this infinite chain is that the E-Drag did stuns on its attacks. This meant that every single troop that the Evo Electro Dragon would hit would be stunned by 0.5 seconds, and when the chain returned to the same troop, it would stun again, and then again, and then again, and so on. Do you see the issue? This card would basically freeze troops while dealing damage. This card could single-handedly destroy any kind of push that came toward it. Lava Hound, Lumberloon, Golem Beatdown, Giant Graveyard, you name it. There are so many reasons why this card specifically was an issue. The Electro Dragon was already super popular in Elixir Golem decks, and these decks are known for being not defensive, which is why they aren't really viable since they can't really defend if the opponent overwhelms them with a crazy counter push. And the only way to instantly kill it reliably was with Lightning or Rocket, which again is a negative Elixir trade. And to make things worse, it was a one cycle Evo, which means that you would get so many of them within a single match. Offensively, the Evo E-Drag was pretty bad, since it could get easily countered by so many things, but on your side of the map, it was insane. Another crazy thing about the Evo E-Drag is that you didn't need it to be directly hitting something to be dealing damage to it. The opponent could tornado it away, but the damage would already be done. I think one of the worst feelings a Clash Royale player can feel is defending a crazy push where an opponent overcommitted, and thinking that you're gonna punish them with a counter push, only to be wrecked in seconds by an Evo E-Drag, and losing a 20 elixir counter push to a single 5 elixir card. I don't think there is much else to say about this card. It has to be the strongest evolution in Clash Royale history, and I don't even think Clash Royale will ever release anything as broken as this card even if they tried, because nothing will be stronger than this card. I hope you enjoyed this video though. Thanks for watching.